Don't you take the message? I'll call for unity. Don't you take the message? I'll call for.
Alafia. I'm Dr. Gloria Lattimore Peace, editor and publisher of Mo Better News and host of the I Can Show and Tell show. The music that you heard came from the album African Skies. The particular selection was The Blue Nile. The composer of that music is here in the studio with me, a musical genius, a musician extraordinaire. I don't know how many things I can tell you about him, but I think that I'm going to let him speak for himself tonight, Brother Phil Cohran.
Well, the first thing that I want to dispel is the idea of a genius, because we all have talent, but it's just hard work. And if you're willing to do the unpleasant parts, you can reach excellence in any area.
All right, well then, a musical excellency.
All right, thank you.
And also in the studio with us is Malik Cohran, like father, like son. Both of them leaders in the musical field. And tonight we're going to be talking to them, and we're going to be listening to excerpts of albums that both of them have created, each with his own specialty. Ultimate Image, Malik Cohran's group, and of course Brother Phil Cohran wears many hats and performs with many groups. I want to begin, of course, with the elder, with the father, and of course I know that you will defer to the elder because you have been properly raised.
Absolutely.
We want to talk to you, Brother Phil, a bit about the Afro Arts Theater, because that to me was the pinnacle or the apex of the glory of black music in the city of Chicago. Tell me about the concept and how you got it started and how you kept it going for as many years as you did.
Well, it was really a dream I had, but I didn't think it would come to fruition that quick. Back in 1961, when I came into knowledge of how cultures operate and how they are born, I stumbled on the term Sanjitum, which means teaching people through the arts, a great pageant that imprinted the cultural concepts on the community. See, and we have that now. Like when Christmas comes around, you have all the Christmas music and you have all the pictures of Santa Claus and all of that, you know, in one sense. But we don't have anything like that for ourselves. And so the Afro Arts Theater was somewhat a kind of an establishment that we opened in order to pull the arts of our people into a focal point. And it became a center, so that it brought all of the people who were very good in these various forms, like the Spencer Jackson family in the gospel music, Darlene Blackburn, who introduced African dance to the Chicago audience. Now African dance gets a lot of play, you know. We had various people who came in the field of drama, like Okoro, Harold Johnson, and we had poets like Sister Gwendolyn Brooks. Obasi got they had their artists there to perform. But most of all, at that time in 1967, we didn't have a place where we could go and glorify in our culture, an establishment for that. So On the Beach was a project of the summer of '67, where out on the 64th Street beach, we set up a whole cultural panorama dealing with the history and culture of our people. And the music was the centerpiece of it, and so many people attended that I asked the people on the last day in August, would you like to do this year-round? And they said yes. So we met. I had a group of them to meet at the St. John Grand Lodge over on 75th and Ingleside, and I authorized them to solicit funds in my name. And they went around and just, you know, said, we want to build a cultural center. So they collected the money, and I went to Oscar Brotman, who just passed this week. I saw it in the obituary. I went to him, and he had the Oakland Square Theater down there, and he took me out to 79th and Ashland. Much bigger theater, 3,000 seats and everything. I said, I don't want to start big. Let's work it up. And so we took the Oakland Square Theater, and it really
Where is that, Drexel Boulevard?
Drexel, right at the square there, 39th, Oakland and Drexel, right there at the corner. And we took that theater and decorated it. We had the community come in. I went to the young youth group, and I went to their meeting, and I told them I was coming in the community to help them and their families, and I wanted to call on them for their help, and they brought in paint and some other stuff, you know. So it was a whole community effort. But most of all, I think most Chicagoans were shocked when they went in the theater and saw how enriching it was to be in an African culture, in an African-centered place.
An African garb.
Right. Place to wear your stuff.
Yes, among people of like minds.
Right.
And all of the stellar personalities of that era came through there at one time or the other. I don't want to shut Malik out of that. Malik, how do you relate to the work that you hear your father discussing here now? 67, you know, that's a long time ago. Was that 27 years ago?
Well, 67.
So you couldn't have been doing very much.
The year I was born.
Okay, a fabulous
I was
year.
being born at that time.
Okay.
Let me tell you something. You know, Roy Lewis has a photo. He won a photo contest with Malik on my back. I had him in a sling.
Really?
And,
okay.
out there on the beach, you know.
Okay.
And Roy
you
took our picture.
Playing music?
No, I was just
walking around.
And Roy took my picture with Malik on the back and exhibited that all over the country.
Okay. So Malik, you were a little one coming into being.
But growing up, I've heard so many powerful things about that era that you know, there's times I just jump back and just live in that thought, you know, of a strong cultural environment, you know. It's like a cat hanging out with a bunch of dogs, and someone takes the cat and put him in an environment with other cats, and it just totally opens them up. And I see that the Afro Arts Theater provided that type of feeling, you know, and motivation, inspiration for a lot of people. You know, I wish I could have been there.
Word.
That's the key.
That's exactly what it was.
See, when you motivate people, you can get the unusual behavior. I mean, they can do miracles. They can perform all sort of things. And what's happening is the majority of our people are not inspired.
What is the cause? What's at the basis
There's
of
so
this?
much jive, so much falseness. There's so many things so unreal. And we are an African people. Our nature is one of reality. And we live in a world of illusions. It's very difficult to inspire people under those circumstances, but I point to you their behavior when Mayor Washington came on the scene.
Exactly. I have to tell you this little anecdote. The morning that he, you know, after the election, and we knew that he had won the election, a friend of mine and I decided that we would just go out and claim the city because we were the mayor. See, the community had the feeling that we were the mayor. It seemed that green lights stayed green longer. It seemed that everything good lasted longer, and you had this feeling of being finally in control of your destiny. It was a wonderful experience to see us come together and to do what was impossible. And through the years, Phil, I have to say that that's been your legacy, to do the impossible, because here you are with children, and you are teaching your children to be musicians. You are teaching them not only about music, but you've taught so many things. I know you've taught health, for example. I know the time when some of the sisters went away to learn how to deliver babies, to be midwives. You know, so you have been interested in the whole of African life.
That's what
and
culture
you pass
is.
that on to your children.
That's what culture is.
How do you do this, though?
Well, I don't know. How do you not do it?
All right, good.
That's a better question, you know.
All right.
You know, if you're concerned about your loved ones, and if you're concerned about the people that you're a part of, especially when you see them way below their potential, then the only thing you can do is the best that you can muster. You know, I'm not a savior or anything, but I just do what I can. And I know a lot of other people like yourself who do what they can. Now, younger people don't see enough of that. And people like yourself are not pointed out to the community. You know, the young people don't know of people like, I run in constantly to young people who are disgusted with the older generation because they think we a bunch of do-nothings.
Well, do you think that, Malik?
Do I think
the older generation's a bunch of do-nothings, or do you make selections here and there?
Well, I don't generalize like that. You know, I've seen more than enough elders doing a tremendous amount of work for the community, and no, I would never stick that on them.
What have you seen in this elder? I know this is your father. I know you have to be a little bit biased, and I know that with him sitting here, you know.
It really wouldn't make a difference.
Let's be candid here. Let's tell him to his face what we think of him.
Well,
Brother Phil, we're going to talk to you about you.
okay. Ever since I can remember being very small, I've always, when my father was around, it was like power. It was like the sun, just a ball of fire. And I've never seen him break down. I've never see him run across a situation that took him out. You know, it was always, any challenge was met head on. You know, and you know, without even knowing it, as I grew up, I kind of felt those same things. You know, the thought of that would be in my head. You know, I said, I can't let this overcome. You know, because my father never broke down. So that alone does a lot for me. And it's definitely something I'd like to pass down to my children when I do have children one day. He was always into knowledge. I've always seen people come from all over to seek advice from him, you know, and that did a lot for me. So I've always had an important role model. You know, as much foolishness that there is, he's always someone who's just always been on it, on top of things, you know. And it can't help but rub off, you know.
What about the kinds of peers that he associated himself with? Did that help you to choose role models? Because I haven't known him to hang out with too many lightweight folk.
Well, it might have helped, but I would probably say the example he set was beyond enough to draw from. You know, but yeah, from his associates, you know, all seemed to reflect that. But I would say he seemed to have more of what I would focus on than anyone.
As a young person, you didn't consider him to be an old fogey or outdated, for example, when he would recite Paul Ernst Dunbar poetry or try to take you back in the day, as the young people will say, you know, dance like folks danced back in the day, or sing the songs of back in the day, or recite the poetry of the previous generation. That did not bore you? That didn't...
Well, put it like this. If we were to go back in ancient civilization, do you think the children would look down on the elders?
I think not.
And see, based on the tone and the environment that was set from day one, hey, the other stuff was crazy to me. It took me a while to get into listening to the radio, you know, but yeah, the foundation was so strong, nothing else really mattered, you know. And of course, there came a time where you have to go out in the world, adventure, and taste some of this and that, and get into that. But you know, when you look back, you kind of realize what's real and what isn't.
Would you have chosen to be a musician had it not been for your early training under your father's tutelage?
I can't say. Music has always been there. It's always been there. I remember being 4 or 5 years old and sneaking up front, huge rehearsal, all these horns and saxophones and drums, you know, just excitement, you know, and hey, I wanted that. That's what I wanted to be a part of. You know, a lot of people say, well, what would you do if you weren't a musician? And I'm like, I don't care. It doesn't matter.
I'd like to tell you something about Malik, if I could, you know.
Oh, of course.
We had an engagement in Rockford, and the bass player, he called and said he couldn't make the engagement. I think it was Saturday. Very important. It was a play that had been structured, and everybody knew their parts and everything. And we didn't have a bass player, see. And so Malik says, I can do it.
How old was he?
I think Malik was about 10 or 11.
It's real young.
Something like that, you know. I said, Malik, I said, this is stiff. You're just getting started. He said, but I can do it. So I said, okay. I said, now we're going to have to go on, and these parts pretty rough. He said, I can do it. So we started practicing. We practiced every day, you know, and over and over and over and over. One day I saw tears coming out of his eyes, but he never stopped. he kept practicing, you know.
I burnt my hand.
Really?
And you know, we went to that place and Malik wiped that gig out. And that was his first gig for $100. He went down to Marshall Fields and bought us food.
Yep.
Yeah. So
He's been
that,
outstanding,
you know,
yeah.
I'm looking at your children, your other children who are musicians,
Yeah.
and I'm wondering how they choose their instruments. You know, because you've got one 10-year-old
Well, I'll tell you,
who's been playing trumpet now
Yeah.
for about 5 years, right?
Maybe longer. Tariq started when he was 3, and I think
right. Playing the
he's
trumpet.
11 now.
Okay.
Yeah, so
he's been playing the trumpet for 8 years.
But you know,
He's a vet.
Tariq insisted on training. I told him, I said, Tariq, I said, go back upstairs. You know, and I teach the kids every morning. I said, when you get school age, then I'll bring you into this. He said, yes, sir. And he'd come down there and sit. I said, Tariq, I told you to go back upstairs. Yes, sir. And he'd go on back upstairs. And then the next morning, he'd come down with all the kids. So fine, I said, with that type of determination, I have to let him sit here, you know.
Okay.
And then one day he took somebody's horn and said, Ta! I said, okay, Tariq. I got him a horn.
Okay.
And he started going around and performing, and people are still surprised to see him play.
Absolutely.
They're still surprised to see him play.
Absolutely. So you chose your instrument based on what?
Well, you know, everybody, most of them learned several instruments. Malik played trumpet, and
And the more you get into music, the more you want to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Play different things.
You play several instruments. You play the harp, you play the trumpet, you play the
Well,
francophone.
as a composer, you should play everything. You shouldn't write for an instrument you don't understand.
Really?
Yeah, that's a crime. Yeah. And I'll tell you, I played with Sunrise, and you know, the great spaceman who inspired the whole world with his creativity. But I played with Sunrise. He used to write things that was downright mean for trumpet players. And I said, I'll never do that. Now, he playing the piano, see, and he never had to breathe. So, you know, I said that any music that I write would be considerate of the performer.
Okay. Do you think Duke Ellington played
I know,
all
I was
those
just getting ready to say that Duke wrote for the performer, not the...
But did he play those instruments?
No.
He didn't, but he understood.
He understood each performer. He understood their minds.
Okay.
And he wrote the type of music that turned them on,
Okay.
see. And he didn't even write instrument. He put the name. Hey, this is for Cootie, this is for Harold, this is for Chuck, and like that.
A new band member, a new sketch.
You know, this is true because Kenny Burrell told me Kenny Burrell was teaching a course in Duke Ellington at the University of Southern California, I believe. And they were thinking of opening up a department of Duke Ellington. And he had these full classes full of people who were studying the music of Duke Ellington. He had to invent a vocabulary because he said Duke Ellington wrote music that fell between the keys. But he always wrote. In fact, he said he very seldom wrote. What he did was conceptualize. And he would get with the particular musician that he wanted to take the lead in this, and they would agree by playing back and forth with each other on how this thing would take off, and then they would take it to the band, and the band would decide how the others would fill in. I thought it was fantastic.
And that's why his music was so complete, and everybody participated in it. I do some things like that too. In fact, I insist on people creating their parts. I don't spoon feed musicians, and I think it's terrible to write music and expect people to play the whole thing, your ideas, you know. But at the same time, Duke Ellington, I had a lot of experience with him because when I started out, I played in Chuck Terry's band, who was Duke's valet, and I was Chuck's musical director because he didn't understand music. This is quite some time ago. So I used to rehearse the guys and everything, and whenever Duke would come to town, we would get to see all of the fellas, Ben Webster and, you know, Tricky Sam Nathan and all these guys. And Johnny Hodges was really my idol.
Oh, please.
Because I've never seen a man that could paralyze 5,000 people.
He can paralyze me too.
With alcohol, you know. I'm sorry. I was in Kiel Auditorium in St. Louis, and the whole, you know, at the height of the night, he played Passion Flower, and everybody in that place froze. It was the first time they'd heard it. I mean, they froze. And somebody started to say something to people. About 3 or 4 people said at the same time, "Shut up!"
Yes, sir. That's right. It's something
You know,
holy about that kind
It
of.
is holy. That is definitely the point. It is a part of our total being. And he was hooked into it. See, Charlie Parker and all of those musicians who really go to the realm of their potential, I think they touch that.
Who do you respect most in your field?
In music,
I'm going to ask you the same question. Yes. I know you play with Jay McShane, you know.
yeah, see, you know, the one you
I
can't
hear
say
some
most.
miles in your trumpet.
Yeah, definitely Miles, but you can't say most because
Well, who then are the persons in your field that you hold in high esteem?
my idols, yes.
Yes.
All right, then all of those that I came in contact with, I would say, first of all, it would have to be Sun Ra,
Okay.
because he was the broadest and the deepest of all of them. And he mastered orchestration, and he mastered melody. He was a superb melodist. And this is the key that's lost today. I would have to say Duke Ellington. He inspired me, and I emulated him. But Max Shan taught me to swing.
Okay.
I have to remember that because nothing, it doesn't have any value if you
It
don't have that
mean
stomp.
a thing if it ain't got
You
that
got
swing.
to swing, you know. And I didn't know it when I played with them, but every night they were stomping. And I just jumped into it, you know. But
Okay.
after I left, I could see that was really their religion.
Okay.
You know, that
And how
every
does
night.
how does Benny Goodman get the title the King of Swing?
Well, who gave it to him? You know, I don't know of anybody who would give him a title like that,
Well,
except
you know
some.
that's
You know,
that's what
we
he
won't
was
even
on.
discuss that type of stuff.
Just
but
dismiss that.
We were talking about idols and people who inspired us. I would have to say Dizzy Gillespie,
All right.
who was the greatest orchestrator. I mean, before Sun Ra, I had to give it to Dizzy because
Okay.
Diz opened everybody up.
Okay.
I was inspired by Monk. I was inspired by Bird. I heard Bird when I was in high school. And
What you gonna do with Prez?
Well, Lester Young,
Okay.
this is what he did for me. He was the master.
right.
He was a technician, you know,
right.
of soul.
Okay.
And what Prez would do, whenever you go to see him, one place in that night, he would shake everybody in that place up. He would never let you leave without turning you completely inside out. And, you know, he took his time doing that, see. But Lester Young was the president of the saxophone.
Absolutely. I saw him one night on 63rd, about 64th, Cotton Grove, in a place out there, not the Pershing, but the place across the street from there. And he fell asleep on the bandstand. Listen, he fell asleep and woke up, came right back in, took over as though he never was
Left,
out.
right.
He could have walked out and walked around the block and come back and done the same thing. He was a master.
Yes, he definitely was.
You know, I think it meant something to be able to have an experience with these people, to
Well-
see them. Do you not feel that it
Yeah,
is a
definitely.
benefit to you to see this high standard be maintained somewhere?
I would like to share this with you because Leroy Jackson, who's a Chicago and a friend of mine, was Prez's bassist. See, and I went down to see Leroy when Prez came to town the last time he was here, and I went down to see Leroy in the afternoon because they were there warming up, you know. And Prez got up and walked all around the room, playing into the corners and playing all over the room, you know. And he was sounding the room out.
Oh,
This was in the
okay.
afternoon.
All right.
See, and people don't
Okay.
know about things like that.
Okay.
But he was finding the sound centers in the room.
Okay. So he was scientific about the way he
You
played.
can't excel if you're not.
Okay.
There's no way you can do it with just luck. You know, you have to have some type of diagram or some kind
And
of
this
plan.
is lifelong. This study
Yes.
to pursue this means that you have made a commitment. Is that right?
It's an intense.
For your life.
It's an intense.
Time, not just to play music,
Yeah, it represents you.
okay?
Yeah, no.
To do everything that you are required to do to maintain, to aspire to that standard and to maintain it,
Another way of looking at it is to eliminate your faults.
okay?
Because a lot of people,
That's striving toward perfection,
a lot of people don't excel because they keep doing what they can do well.
okay?
You know, and they refuse. They go back to the bad part that they have problems with,
Right.
and they skip over that. See, so they
Right.
never advance.
Right. I've heard that sometimes Phil will have somebody practice one note over and over. For how long a period?
Everybody.
Everybody. For how long a period?
If you don't master one note, how are you going to master many?
So you will have them practice one note for a day?
No, not like that. I wouldn't put that on anybody.
Okay.
You know, I did that myself.
Okay.
In fact, I played one note for several days. But I have people to listen to one note as long as they can hold it, and then go to the next one and listen to that as long as you can hold it, until you played every note on your horn, holding it as long as you can. You see, we skipped over, when we were talking about the masters, we skipped over the breath instruments.
Okay.
And that is where the power and the inspiration for our people is, in the breath.
All right.
It's not on keyboards.
Okay.
And I mean, Duke was great,
Is that
but
why you don't use a keyboard in your organization?
Well, I don't want to put down keyboards, but I'm saying that it is the breath that's power.
Okay.
See, I would give you a demonstration, but it would take too long here on this video, which might be bad. You want to give them a demonstration, Malik?
We can't, because we don't have enough time to give a demonstration.
No, I mean it would take about a minute and a half.
Okay.
You got that much?
No, we need what I need, because I need to find out some things from Malik before we come to. We've got just a few minutes, and I need to find out some things from this brother, because you know, I'm saying like father, I'm saying like father, like son, and I know until this day you are still studying with your father. But I also know that you are taking a slightly different road for your music, where it seems to me I hear jazz more often than not in Phil's music. What is your main ingredient in the music that you perform?
Well, the music that I perform, I mean, I'm not at the stage yet where I can do the music that I would like to do. The only type of music that I'd like to do, which is more creative, more spontaneous, spiritual. You know, which has a African influence, jazz influence. You know, conglomeration of all. But I do get into the type of music that I perform now, solely for the reason of the vocals. You know, just singing with a vocal group. It's something about it that just it's like food. You know, it's like food. You know, and with the acoustic bass and acoustic guitar, you know, the group, as you know, plays in front of the water tower, and the acoustics out there just, wow. It's like I can step outside myself and become the audience. You know, so I'm getting a great deal out of that. But there are some things I see beyond that in the near future.
So you're saying that you are not playing the music that you intend to play, and yet I am so satisfied with the music that you are already playing. I can't imagine how much more exhilarated I'll be when you start playing the music you are intending to play.
Well, absolutely. Well, if you think, we do a lot of hotels and weddings and so forth and so on, and a lot of those events are structured. You know, now that we can get a little charismatic, you know, and creative, but it's a certain mode that they want to stick to at the weddings that we play at, in the functions. But what I'm doing now is developing a supplementary income, which will allow me the time to develop what I need to develop. You know, because that's becoming more important than anything.
Well, I certainly look forward to this music that you intend to perform, and I'm very happy to have had you both on Like Father, Like Son, and I look forward to interviewing you and hearing and seeing you again very soon.
Don't you get the message? I'll call for you in tea.